Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
My guest today has many strings to his bow. He hails from the West Country of the UK and has worked in several creative roles in front and behind the camera. He started his career working for 8 years with the Bristol production company Collision Films. There he was involved in shooting music videos for high-profile bands including Radiohead, the Scissor Sisters, McFly and The Offspring. My guest would go on to film the animation sequences for the 2012 feature film, A Fantastic Fear of Everything, starring Simon Pegg. He also went on to specialise in time-lapse videography, film commercials for various brands and corporate companies, and helped film the pilot for the Freak Brothers movie for Bristol animation house, Bolex Brothers. In 2004, my guest began his long association with Doctor Who, where he's become one of the longest serving cast members. He's played various parts from Cybermen to Daleks, and also involved in the Doctor Who at the Proms and the Symphonic Spectacular. Today I talk to fellow Bristolian Jon Davey. We talk about Jon's early life and his upbringing, how he got his break in the creative industry, life behind the lens making music videos, the painstaking hours spent filming stop motion animation, and his life since landing his dream job on Doctor Who. Good morning, a very warm welcome, Jon.
Hello there, how you doing? Good to see you again. It's been a long time.
It's been a hell of a long time. Yeah, good to see you. You're looking well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I've got a very nice suntan because I've spent 6 months in California over winter. So every year, when it gets to like March, April, I'm like, I can't remember the last time I saw sun or warm weather. So last year I just went, you know what, I'll just go to California and spend 6 months there, pretty much just skateboarding and traveling around and working on my tan.
I'm a very envious man. We've got many things to talk about in terms of your creative endeavors and all the things you've done, which I've mentioned briefly in the introduction. But to begin with, Jon, I wanted to kind of go back to the very beginning and find out a little bit about your background and ask you initially where and when you were born, and then come on to your kind of schooling years. And I wanted to ask you where you were schooled and were they sort of happy times in your sort of early life?
Yes, so I was born in Bristol. So I haven't escaped. So I was, right, here's giving away my age. I was born in 1971. So I'm an old man, even though I don't live my life like one. And I grew up in Knoll in South Bristol. Went to school in Totterdown. It was at the time it was called Knoll Junior School, I believe. It's now called Hillcrest, which is a very sought after kind of place to take your kids. Totterdown was kind of like the ghetto back in the 1970s, but you know, trying to buy a house there now is unattainable. So I thoroughly enjoyed school. It wasn't for educational reasons. It was just generally just a laugh and messing around with my mates. So I went to Knoll Juniors in Totterdown, and then my secondary school education was Hengrove, which is now I think called the Oasis or something as a frame of reference. And that was in South Bristol. Like I was saying, I thoroughly enjoyed school, didn't really do any work, but I think my sensibilities for my sense of humor and my outlook on life was formed there, because I pretty much spent most of my time trying not to take anything too seriously and messing around and having a good laugh. And I just wasn't really interested in what I was trying to be taught as such. I guess I was a daydreamer. I'm sitting in a maths class learning about matrices and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how this has any relevance on my life, but obviously it's the way things are done. And I kind of scraped by school. I didn't know at the time, but I'm very dyslexic, so reading and writing was always a bit of a problem. So my entire school career was generally trying to figure a way out of getting through the academia without being able to read or write properly, which is very difficult. However, I think that kind of formed something inside of me that makes me a very good problem solver. So I kind of only kind of came to realize this later on, but I'm very good at solving problems or looking at a situation and very quickly figuring out a solution to it. Again, from I guess trying to figure out how I'm supposed to read and write and not be able to do it properly. So I don't think it's a weakness, really. It's maybe be able to kind of look at a situation and look at things laterally. Most people as a whole, you look at something in a linear fashion. You have a start and an end, and there's a whole bunch of processes. But most things that I approach, I can kind of at the beginning see what the final result is almost immediately, without kind of taking those steps, which is very good, and it's kind of helped me, I guess, in my career, where a lot of things that I've done have not really been done before, especially in the animation world, which I guess we'll get onto. And I kind of immediately am able to kind of just take a few moments and go, yeah, I can figure that out. That's not a difficult thing to do.
We're obviously going to move on and talk about your career in television and then subsequently Doctor Who, but I kind of wanted to pick up on the academia side, because interestingly, I share a lot of the same kind of sentiments that you've mentioned. I kind of felt a little bit, I don't know, let down by the system, but I wasn't particularly academic. I was dyslexic from quite a young age, and I found it kind of quite difficult to engage in a lot of the subject matter and the syllabus that was taught. But I kind of wanted to ask you, did you decide to pursue a career and go on to sort of further education and academia, or did you decide that the workplace was the far better option for you?
Well, the interesting thing is, when you're young and you're at school, and the hindsight is a very useful thing. You don't have a clue about anything. The funny thing is that when you're sort of in your mid to late teenage years, there seems to be something that you kind of think that you know it all. And then later on in life, you look back and you're like, oh my goodness, I did not have a clue whatsoever. So the thing is that at school, because the grown-ups, the adults, you look upon them that you think, oh, they've got it all figured out. And then later on in life, you go through your entire life and you're like, you know what? I don't think any of us have got it figured out. We're all trying to navigate and work out where we're supposed to be going. So I think that obviously there's a big emphasis at school where they, you know, they would say, well, if you get these grades, then you can go on and then you can do this. And then when you do this, then you can get this job and that will lead to X, Y, and Z. And especially the careers advisors, and you probably had a similar thing, that what would happen is you would sit down with a person, they would just look at your grades, and then they would kind of guide and base your life on that. And they would look at it and they'll go like, oh yeah, you should work in the building trade. And you're like, oh, okay, well, obviously you must know best because you're a grown-up. So it's obviously changed a lot now, because obviously there's way more different outlets for your career and your life. But back then it was more the emphasis on what's classed as a good job, which normally has the caveat of earning good money, not necessarily doing what you like or what you enjoy, which I think has changed a lot now, because obviously you can pursue careers in all sorts of things, and especially creative things, which, necessarily won't pay well. But at the end of the day, myself, I adapt my life and my spending and my overheads based on what I want to do with my life. So, you could earn £100,000 a year, but still be broke, because you'll have the trappings of wealth, and you have to just keep this income coming in to pay for all of these expensive things. So I left school with when I was a young man, we had O levels and CSEs. I think I was the last year to actually do that. I had a B in technical drawing, which I think I just had a natural inclination, because I didn't even really study for any of it. It just kind of came naturally. I had a D in art, which I think I was marked down by, and I quote, using my imagination too much. How dare anybody uses their imagination too much when it comes to art?
I would have thought you'd get notched up a couple of grades for music. I thought that was the whole point of creativity, to use your imagination, to experiment.
Well, I guess when I was at school, or my teacher, that wasn't the case. We had a subject. We basically had to pick like a word and then draw a picture regarding that word. So I chose rhythm. So I drew a picture of someone playing a guitar. It was a Gibson guitar, actually, on a beach with waves, with seagulls flying over. So I thought I ticked all the boxes for rhythm, but I think I got marked down because what I drew didn't match the subject. So that was kind of interesting, and also looking back as well, it's quite strange that I didn't really pursue art after that, but it's very strange that one person's opinion or comment could actually change your entire life, or the path that you want to go down, be it good or be it bad. You could have somebody that would actually look at something that you're doing and just go, oh my God, that's really good. Why don't you pursue this? Obviously, I guess I had the opposite. So there's a lot of very, very talented creative people that I knew at school, but they didn't really pursue it because there wasn't a career, as such in generally anything artistic. But an example of somebody that I knew, whose pig-headed determination and playing the long game paid off. Was or is a good friend of mine, Stu Jackson. He went to Hengrove School the same as me. Very similar to me, he had very little interest in academia and paying attention in general. But he had a love of music and more interestingly, playing the guitar. That's all he wanted to pursue. Everything else in school he ignored. So obviously he was a problematic pupil because obviously he wasn't towing the company line. I got a funny feeling that he may have actually left school even before the exams, and went and worked in a guitar shop. Then basically formed bands, had to do bullshit jobs, to pay the bills, working in call centers, working in B&Q, but kept his love for music and his love for being in a band going. I think he then eventually went to university in Bath, studying a music technology degree. And then kind of fast forward, he was in another band, quite obviously I wouldn't say a commercial hit, but a popular band that was called Phantom Limb. Then started producing music. So he then started recording songs for people like Will Young, Skunk Anansie, Joss Stone. He's now been working with Grant from Massive Attack, producing and playing and recording music for the last Massive Attack, 2 Massive Attack albums. And also with my other friend Dan Jones, who's a very talented composer. They've been composing music for movies and television. Most recently, they've just recorded the music for The Outlaws, which is the Stephen Merchant comedy that's set and shot in Bristol. And he just got nominated for an Ivor Novello Award, which is more of the, I would say, legitimate awards, not just a popularity contest. So is good, and hopefully, some people are listening to this, that he pursued his love, despite of all other obstacles in the way, saying, no, this isn't the way you should do it, and playing the long game. A lot of people that I know are all millionaires. A lot of them are all very miserable because, to chase the money and earn that sort of money isn't easy, especially the things you have to do as well. So I guess me and Stu have a very similar kind of outlook on life, where you just know in the back of your head that you shouldn't be doing what you are doing or what people are telling you to do, and there's just something inside of you that's just going, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to keep pursuing what I want to do. So getting back to obviously my story, I left school not knowing what to do. So I joined something that was called a YTS scheme, a youth training scheme, which was basically, I'd say, slave labor, which basically they would say, like, well, you can have a career in this, and you spent 2 years on the scheme, which is a full-time job, plus you'd spend 1 day a week at college learning your trade. And at that time, the wages was £27.50 a week, which in the late 80s, you know what, £27.50 a week doesn't go far at all. So I just dipped in and out of that. I then worked at screen printers. I also had a love for photography back then. I bought a camera from my friend Paul Blake, and just something just clicked where I take a load of photographs, send the pictures off. A day later, get the prints back. I get super excited by it. So I ended up working in a camera shop, London Camera Exchange, for a couple of years. Then went to Western College doing a sitting guild in photography. Then got another job at, I worked at a place called Photovision at the time. Then got another job working at London Camera Exchange, which facilitated me to buy cheap cameras and learn about photography that way. I then kind of just had a moment when I was like, you know, I need to just pull the plug on this and then, you know, go off on a different career. I then kind of just left and just went to America for 5 weeks, much to the chagrin of my parents. I then came back and then spent probably a couple of years pursuing a career in full-time unemployment, and general tomfoolery and living an alternative lifestyle, put it that way. I then actually at that time started actually making money from photography. I started photographing people's weddings, which, to be fair, I just found extremely boring, but at least I was taking photographs and making money. I then bought a video camera, and then just started making short films. I kind of got slightly inspired by Robert Rodriguez from reading how he made El Mariachi. And again, obviously, that was a very inspirational thing because I looked at someone who had a very similar outlook and career path as me, that he was like, well, I want to make this thing, but you have to go through all these processes and you have to start, you know, at the bottom of the ladder and work your way up, and maybe in 10 years time they'll let you make what you want to make, which isn't really art. So, you know, his story was he went into a medical research center doing medical trials to make money to self-fund his movie. So that was a very inspirational thing, that I'm like, oh, you don't need to ask permission or have, you know, a piece of paper saying that you are qualified in something. So that was kind of the sort of Kickstarter for me. And then I just started filming stupid, dumb stuff, music videos, things like that, dumb skits and sketches. And I think I sent, there was a thing called Free Screen. I think it was Channel 4. And basically you would send in your homemade videos. It was basically like YouTube, I guess. And they would give you like 50 quid, and then they would just show a whole bunch of people's short homemade videos, which they kept on going, oh yeah, these are really good, keep sending more in. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm onto something, maybe I'm doing something right. I was then at the time working with a friend of mine, Jason, photographing bottles of wine for a company called Avery's, a Bristol company. And I needed a place to photograph all these bottles of wine. And my friend Sue Gent, she was working at Bolex Brothers. And she said, oh, there's a big empty studio. You can come down and use this. So I went down there, and I met Dave Borthwick, who was the director at Bolex Brothers. And immediately he was just a really nice guy, you know. And a lot of the time in the media industry, you feel all a little bit, you know, awkward. But Dave was just a normal person who, you know, was very creative and very talented. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I was photographing the bottles of wine there. And I can remember that the studio that I was in, a guy walked in with a giant moss-covered log, And I was like, "Oh, hi, how's it going?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." He said, "Oh, we're going to be making a magical wonderland." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't really think anything of it. And then I had a phone call, probably a month later, from my friend Sue saying, "Oh, we're working on a music video for Radiohead. Do you want to be a runner on it?" And I was like, "Yeah, but am I going to be good enough?" Um, because again, the thing is the normal process that you have to go through all of these steps. So I basically started on this Radiohead video as a runner. It was for There, from the Hail to the Thief album. And basically I was like, oh, right, it's this, how filmmaking, it was a mixture of live action and animation. And then about a week or a couple of weeks into it, they were talking about how to shoot the stop motion animation. And at the time, they were basically using like the front end section of a video camera, and then running it into a computer, which would capture still frames, and then make the animation that way, or shoot on film, which is traditionally done. Then I cast my memory back to watching a documentary about the making of Temple of Doom, and the whole mine scene with the little carts when they're kind of going through the mines. That was all shot as stop motion, and the camera they used was a Nikon F3 stills camera, because basically they had to do it as stop motion animation, but they couldn't use a film camera because the camera's physically so big, the whole set would have to be hundreds of meters long. So they literally had just a Nikon stills film camera that was on the track with these little, the little carts, and they were literally just doing click, 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 taking a series of stills on negative film. So again, my problem solving part of my brain was like, how are we going to shoot this? And I was like, I know a way. I made that link. I just bought a Nikon D100 digital stills camera. And I was like, yeah, we could just shoot a bunch of stills, can't we? And Chris Hopewell, the director, was like, he was like, oh yeah, well, just, see if you can figure it out. And I think I know at the time, Aardman Animation had just started kind of doing stuff with digital stills cameras for animation. So for that shoot, the way that we did it was the video assist that you have, because you didn't have a live image coming through the camera. I literally just had a small video camera just off to one side of the digital camera. So you get a live feed from the video camera and the stills. Obviously, there's a slight bit of parallax. Obviously, digital cameras now all have live view. But yeah, we shot that video using digital stills. And then that got put up for some MTV Music Video Awards, that won, I don't know, Best Art Direction and a few other things. And then obviously all of a sudden, once you start winning awards, you all start becoming very popular. So we started making film music promos for Scissor Sisters, Comfortably Numb, The Killers, The Bees, all sorts. Then basically took a hiatus because the whole music industry imploded, and they were then lowballing everything, going, oh, we got £5,000 for a music video. After the Radiohead video, cost so much money, it was just dwindling. Also, there was issues that you had. You have the artist, you have the management, you have the record label, and you also have the video commissioner, and it's all of those people micromanaging what you're supposed to be doing. So you would have one person saying like, oh no, the artist doesn't like that, but they're looking at it from a marketing point of view or a brand point of view, and then the artist didn't even know anything about this conversation. So yeah, it was very frustrating because again, you're trying, going back to my D that I got in art, you know, it's like you're trying to create some artistic thing, but you're not. There's just a load of fuckery going on. So I think basically everyone felt a bit burnt out, took a break. And then Chris Hopewell basically started screen printing gig posters. So you would go and see a live band, and then you would have a gig poster screen printed that you could buy. And he's good friends with Stanley Donwood, who's, I think he lives in Bath, who's an artist. He also does the artwork for Radiohead. So there was the connection there. And then basically he said, oh, we're looking at doing some sort of short Instagram video clips for a new Radiohead album, Moonshaped Pool. Are you interested? And then Chris being Chris, who's very tenacious, he was like, yeah, we'll just make a whole music video. And then basically we ended up making the music video for Burn the Witch, which was a kind of homage to sort of Trumpton, Camberwick Green style thing. And then again, what with Radiohead's very clever and canny marketing, that they deleted all of their social media presence. They literally just wiped everything. And what was actually quite interesting as well is their website just started disappearing over days, the content, until there was nothing left. And the irony of it was, because they had no social media presence, it made them more popular on social media because everyone was talking about it. It's a very sort of Black Mirror type situation. And then the video for Burn the Witch got released and went kind of berserk. So then that kickstarted making music videos again. And then Chris basically, I think at this point, realized the power of saying no. You don't have to say yes. When you're starting a career, you're very desperate not to offend anyone, and you just go, oh, I got to keep saying yes to everything, because
and you'll do anything pretty much because you feel you have to. There's a necessity. And it's such a difficult industry to break out into as well.
And then the older you get, you basically go, you know what, I don't actually have to say yes. I don't actually have to do anything anyone tells me, which again, in hindsight, you know, you go like, well, you know, duh. So his proviso was, we'll write you the treatment, we'll give you an animatic or a storyboard, we're going to shoot it, and you're not going to see it until it's completed, and you have no creative control. Otherwise, we're not doing it. And interestingly enough, everybody started saying yes. So that was really good. We did a couple of videos for Run the Jewels, one called Walking in the Snow, and the other one called Don't Get Captured. We also did 3 music promos for Cat Stevens. He re-released or re-recorded Tea for the Tillerman, because it was a 50-year anniversary. So we shot Where Do the Children Play, and also Father and Son, which is probably one of the most famous songs ever, and also the Tea for the Tillerman track. Then also ended up doing a little segment for the John Lewis Christmas advert, which was in 2020. Is the one with the snowman floating across the city. Yes. So during 2020 we were very, very busy, where the rest of the world was sort of just doing nothing, sat at home, possibly earning furlough money or possibly not. We because you don't need many people to shoot stop motion animation, was exceptionally busy. And then off the back of that, I've always owned Volkswagen camper vans. I found that my old Volkswagen wasn't really big enough, so I went, you know what, I'm going to get a bigger van, and then embarked on a year-long, very painful conversion of a camper van, which I'm actually sat in at the moment.
Yeah.
It's almost done. Did a little installation the other day. This is probably backwards, but that was a little plaque that I pulled up. The world is yours. A little reference to Scarface, and possibly maybe my attitude in life.
You've spoken in detail about your time as a music in producing music videos with Collision. You were there for 8 years, and some of the other work you've done with Chris. But you've also worked across many other disciplines, including stop motion, which you've mentioned, camera work, editing, time-lapse photography. You've done acting, which we'll come on to shortly when we discuss Doctor Who. Do you have a favorite area that you've worked in? And if so, why?
That's an interesting question. My favorite, I guess I could put it, my favorite area that I work in is the area that I haven't worked in for a while, and then I start doing again. It might not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I'm not a big fan of consistently doing the same thing. So I would generally, I guess, as you said, I got a lot of strings to my bow, but that's how I function. The thought of doing one thing and having a career doing one thing is just does not make any sense. It probably makes sense to the most of the population, but for me, I just need the variation. So for example, I would shoot a load of music videos, and then I would go off, and then I would build a loft conversion, build a double garage, build a great big patio in the back of my house as a total break from that, and then do that, and then come back and do something else. So yeah, so it's basically, my favorite thing is the thing that I haven't been doing for a while, and then I've started doing again.
I kind of share a similar thing, because I think when you do the same thing day in, day out, it becomes familiarity. And
Yeah,
for me, your mind needs to be stimulated by doing different things, or to challenge yourself in some sort of way. So I can completely agree on you with that. I kind of wanted to now talk about a life-changing experience. We take the clock back to 2004, and I want to ask you about the Doctor Who audition. How did you get the audition? Why were you unaware you were auditioning for Doctor Who? And how did you eventually get the role?
So this rewinds back to when I was also working at Collision Films. That between the filming jobs, I had periods of time where I wasn't working. I'm also a big fan of not working as well. And I think I probably,
aren't we all?
well, exactly, yeah. But I kind of managed to navigate myself through life that I'm like, you know what, I just don't want to work for a month, and I won't, and I'll just go and do something else. So the periods of time between the music videos, I had a lot of free time, and at the time, my flatmate, a guy called Alan, who was a punk, green spiky hair in a punk band. He was like, he goes, oh, I do lots of sort of background work in television. I'm, the big issue seller on EastEnders. I was in Judge Dredd. Obviously he has a look, and he's like, oh, sign up with this agency. So I've got Alan to thank for again as a pivotal point in my life where, I was like, yeah, let's just try this. So I signed up with a background agency, Phoenix Agency, based in Bristol, and just did a few random rubbishy things on Casualty and stuff like that. And then got a call where 50 people were asked to go to the BBC studios, the old BBC studios in Llandaff and Cardiff. And we spent a day with a lovely, very talented lady called Elsa Burke, doing rehearsals, movement exercises, marching in time, walking around with our eyes closed. And we did that. And then there was a guy there, dare I say it, almost looked a kid, because I think he's younger than me, who his name is Stephen Morris, who is now one of the executive producers for Doctor Who. Back then, I think he was a runner or a third assistant director, and he said, you have to sign this non-disclosure agreement, but this was a rehearsal for being one of the Cybermen in Doctor Who. And as a Doctor Who fan as a kid, the adrenaline just started kind of going in my stomach, and I was like, oh my goodness. And again, like with my filmmaking career, the imposter syndrome in me just started oozing out, going, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? Because I'm not qualified in anything, But anyway, so we basically had a call back where we had to go to Millennium Effects, Neil Gorton's company that make the costumes, and if the proverbial suit fit, then we got the job, and then filmed 4 episodes in series 2 of Doctor Who, with David Tennant, which was amazing. It was just an amazing experience. And little did I know that I would then end up being in 51 episodes of Doctor Who, playing many of the iconic monsters and creatures.
We'll talk about your life working on the sets, the people you've worked with on Doctor Who for many years. But before we do that, I want to tap into your love affair with Doctor Who, because you mentioned as a child you were a regular watcher, you were a huge fan of the popular show. What was it about the show that excited you? What are your favourite episodes? And who is your favourite actor who has played Doctor Who?
Right. Well, as a kid, again, because I guess I was a dreamer, and I just, was always looking at something that wasn't the reality as such. Was a big fan of Doctor Who. Can remember sitting down watching it during tea time. I only saw it in black and white because we didn't have a color television until 1990. So yeah, that was fantastic. My earliest memories was Tom Baker. So favorite is a very subjective term, but obviously my earliest memories were of Tom Baker. So he's my Doctor. as Whovians say. And it's very difficult thinking back. I'm thinking of memories when I'm like 7, 8 years old, and it's very difficult to kind of remember a lot. But my favorite episodes were probably like the Hand of Fear or Talons of Wang Chung. So that really kind of got my whole interest in fantasy and science fiction. Again, I was a huge Star Wars fan. To be honest, any boy growing up in the 70s, there wasn't even an option not to be a Star Wars fan, I guess. And then obviously I kind of had a big love for Lord of the Rings. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, playing Warhammer. So my nerdism was being formed at a young age. But again, when you hit a certain age, or especially back then, there's a huge emphasis on to leave your childish things behind and grow up, and all of a sudden you're growing up and it's accelerated. You leave school, you've got to be serious and you've got to pursue this career. So all of that got left behind very, very quickly. And then it's all then come back again, because you're like, no, I like what I like. And those are the things that give me comfort and make me happy. So in a weird roundabout way, and possibly my subconscious has formed my career of being on the show. So watching Tom's performance was just amazing. This big, confident guy on screen, and as a young kid, you're like, oh wow, this is, something kind of amazing, a role model as such, being on the show, that was just like a dream come true. That was just so fantastic. And then I didn't do anything in series 3, but I then came back on Voyage of the Damned, playing one of the Heavenly Host. So the same guys pretty much came back to do the Heavenly Host. There was Rory Mears, Ken Hoskins, Joe White, Adam Sweet, Paul Casey, he was the monster leader. That was the sort of pen title. He was actually the talented one. He had studied dancing and theatre and performance. And what I learned through him and Elsa Burke, who was the choreographer, gave me an on-the-job learning kind of career. So, most of my thanks is learning from them. So we did Voyage of the Damned, and then I came back playing the Ood and the Jadoon and the Hath. Eventually then became a Dalek, which was a huge, massive milestone in Victory of the Daleks, where the Daleks were played before by Nick Pegg, Barnaby Edwards. I think Dan Barrett did it. Nick Briggs did the voice of the Daleks. Again, I met Nick Briggs working on the Cybermen episodes, and immediately I loved Nick Briggs to pieces, because it wasn't like he cared, but he was just very relaxed, wasn't panicky, wasn't serious. He was there about just having fun. So the same guys came back to do the Cybermen the Daleks in Victory of the Daleks, which was Matt Doman, Joe White, Jeremy Harvey, friend of mine, Ben Ashley, who then he spent 2 years, he took 2 years off all work to train to become a stuntman, which which now he is doing. That is his full-time career. He's stunt doubled for Tom Hiddleston and all sorts. So yeah, it's always, I love it. I love seeing the genesis of people that are at one point in their life and want to get somewhere, and the only way you're going to get there is just hard work and consistency, and not going, I should be getting this role, why aren't I getting this role, why is that person getting the role? It's just playing the long game, and having patience, and just keep doing it, and then eventually people will drop out along the way. And as long as, and this is actually a good piece of advice, the most important thing, be it working in TV and film, is to be nice, to be a nice person to have around. It can be a very, very stressful environment because there's a huge amount of money at stake, a lot to do in a very short period of time. So a lot of mine and a lot of the other guys' kind of thing was to try to make everyone else's life as easy as possible, even if it just came down to taking your costume off and hanging it up properly. So then when the costume person came along, it created less work for them to sort it out. So I think that's a very important thing. Anyone listening, that wants to go into that world, is just try and make everyone else's life a little bit easier around you. Not that you'll end up working yourself to death, but just smiling, just saying hello, just going, oh, would you like a cup of tea? Ask it, especially on set, asking someone, oh, would you like a cup of coffee? That sometimes is the best thing in the world to someone. That's the most important thing in the world. Like, it's weird. It's a very, very small thing, but in a very stressed environment, and especially, like myself as a camera operator, you sometimes forget to eat. You forget to drink water because you're so focused on what you're doing. Just having someone by the side of you just going, have some water to drink, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot.
It's the small things in life that go a long way.
Yeah.
Of course, the Doctor Who experience for many years and being part of that world has created so many great opportunities for you. You've been involved in talks and conventions. You're involved in Doctor Who at the Proms and the Symphonic Spectacular. How do you find interacting with the fans and having a fan base associated with the series? Do you like that side of it as well, that side of the coin?
Yeah, so there's I'm trying to think what the first live event I did was. I think we possibly did a live event which was at the Barbican Centre. It was like a BAFTA type thing. And then I was very lucky that I then, with my friend Carl Greenwood, got chosen to go on a tour called Doctor Who Live back in 2010. And that was an arena tour, like 30 something dates all around the UK. A huge, great big show with thousands of people watching you. Now, it was very, very different to working in television, where television is very stop-start, very little time for rehearsals. You would possibly work out something very complicated that you're very proud of, and then when you watch on television, it's 2 seconds. So that was my first experience of theatre or live performance, and I absolutely loved it. And then immediately I go, oh, I know why actors love doing theatre, even more so than television and movies that pay them money, because before I was thinking like, why are they doing theatre? Because there's no money in it. And you're like, oh no, it's not about the money, is it? And yeah, so being in a live environment, it was at Wembley Arena, probably 3,000 plus people in the arena, and then marching in as the Cybermen. There is a clip on YouTube of this as well. 6 Cybermen all marching in time to Murray Gold's brilliant music that was conducted by Ben Foster and his cut down band. And we're all marching in time to the beat of the music. And I can't remember, it's something like 120 paces. We had to march in, turn, go down, march, and stop exactly on the same beat. So again, the problem solving part of my brain kicked in, and I was like, well, this is the very final beat. This is how many paces it is to where we start. You just back time the bars in the music, and then you can find a start point and you just march in time with the music. And if you know that you've got to do a turn in 20 paces as you're marching up, if you're feeling you're going too fast or too slow, you just shorten your stride a little bit. So again, that was just an amazing thing to see, that, you know, you're marching down and literally the final beat of the music, you're in place. Got to go on tour with Nigel Planer, who was the star of the show, which was amazing, just listening to him talking of stories about the young ones and stuff like that. And also it's getting the immediate audience reaction, which just gives you that lift. Whereas when you film in television and film, you'll do something and they'll go, yeah, that's fine, we'll carry on. And you're like, I don't feel I did that right. You know, you don't get that until months down the line. So Doctor Who live, Doctor Who at the Proms, where I played one of the Whisper Men, the Symphonic Spectacular, which was an amazing opportunity to go to Australia and New Zealand, and it's a full live orchestra playing the music. And this is actually quite a popular thing now, you know, listening to a movie score live is just the most incredible thing to do. So if anyone has an opportunity to hear a full orchestra, full choir doing live music, I'd definitely recommend it.
I've got one final question, John, and then we move on to the quickfire questions, which we ask all your take guests, maybe things we didn't know about them and things they like, and maybe things they're not so keen on in life. My final question, outside of your busy work in life, what do you like to do to relax, and what are your interests? And do you have a family or any children? And if so, what do they think about your work and your achievements to date?
Well, my biggest love in life, and if anyone looks at my Instagram, I think it's going to be very obvious what it is I love to ride electric skateboards. As a kid
I had noticed.
Yes. As a kid back in the 80s, you know, everyone had a skateboard, which I had a skateboard. Again, you grow up and you go, oh, I'll leave that behind. I then started longboarding, which is basically just a long skateboard, with a load of my friends who are all surfers. So generally the worst surf of the year is in the summer. So they basically started getting these longboards. So you can get your dopamine rush, you know, from surfing, but in another form. Then obviously, as I was getting older, I'm like, you know what, my joints, my hips can't really cope with this. I then saw, I've got to try and think what I'll tell you what the seminal moment was. 2014, I was going from Sydney to visit my friend Kelly, who I went to school with, who now lives in Australia. Shout out to Kelly Vile. And I was on I was on a train going north of Sydney, to where they live. And I got off the train to change stations, And I was just minding my own business. I looked down the road and I saw a guy walking with looked like a giant longboard. And then he put it on the floor, jumped on it, and whizzed off. And I just went, what on earth? And then that obviously triggered off my young memories of skating. I then bought an electric skateboard, which was it wasn't very good, but all of a sudden I was getting that rush. And then what happens is you then buy another one, and then you buy another one, and then you buy another one, and then you buy another one that can then go 40 miles an hour. So yeah, that's what I do. Possibly I may have a little bit of a problem because I have to go out on it every single day. If I don't, then I start getting very twitchy. I think I've obviously got a big addiction for adrenaline and dopamine, and I have to keep that going. However, our British winters aren't really very conducive for that lifestyle. So last November, I had the opportunity of going to America to go to a Doctor Who convention, which is amazing. I've been to many of them in the States. And I said, you know what? I haven't been away for 2.5 years, and I spent 2.5 years working hard, making all these music videos. I'm just going to stay in the States and take my skateboard with me and skate in the California sunshine.
Why not?
So I did that on and off for 6 months, which was absolutely fantastic. Went to Vegas, California, Los Angeles, went to Utah. Possibly the highlight of my trip is meeting up with 150 other people on electric bikes, unicycles, electric skateboards, and we all went up the Las Vegas Strip on a Saturday night, which was a total weird, trippy moment. But yeah, that is my one life, and I think I heard someone say it. There's a quote, and I don't know where it originates from, but it's always better to say "oh well" than "what if." So I think I've taken that on board, and I'm living my life like that at the moment. As regards to family and kids, I don't have any. Possibly my outlook and lifestyle as such isn't very conducive. Probably very self-centered, which isn't conducive to having a family and children. So yeah. So certain things press my buttons, put it that way.
John, with those wise words, and you said about your life philosophy, we come on to the final 13 questions. They're quick fire questions. Don't think about these in any detail, but we ask all your take guests the same questions. We always get some interesting results, and it looks like the neighbours have got the builders in. I can keep hearing hammers and chisels and all sorts going on. Here we go. Question number 1, Jon Davey.
Yes.
What would you say is your favourite pastime?
Skateboarding.
I thought that was inevitable. We've obviously talked about music videos with Collision, we've talked about photography, we've talked about Doctor Who, all sorts of creative things. But now cinema, what would you say is your favourite film and why?
Oh, that's a loaded question. There's never a favourite film. It depends on the mood, but I would possibly say as an all-round go-to, Apocalypse Now.
Tremendous film. I saw it a couple of years ago when they re-released it, a new 4K edit. I'm trying to think what they... Is it the final cut? Coppola's
yeah, because there was
cut?
the Redux, wasn't there? And then yeah.
Incredible experience on the cinema screen. And it was probably one of the greatest experiences I've had in a cinema. And I love Coppola as well. Who would you next say is your favorite novelist?
Right, that's interesting. I'm a non-reader. I haven't read a book in my life. due to reasons of me not being able to read properly. So I've avoided it. Maybe I shouldn't avoid it because it's always good to do something difficult. However, my frame of reference is obviously novels that have been made into movies. So I would probably have to say Stephen King.
Any favorite Stephen King novel that's been translated to cinema, to film?
Well, quite famously, he was never very happy about his books being turned into movies because he says, no, it's not what I've wrote. And then I think I've heard interviews with him in later life realizing and understanding that the mediums as two totally different things, and you can't transform one to the other. But yeah, again, one of my favorite films is the Shining, which I'd have to say that one.
The great Stanley Kubrick. If you could have chosen a different profession, what would it have been?
Oh my goodness. I don't know, rock star.
Who would you say in life's been your greatest inspiration?
Wow, there's been a lot. You know, I mentioned earlier Robert Rodriguez. I think it's anyone that has taken the alternate career path. You know, again, going back to Coppola, he wasn't, you know, he was a maverick, you know, when it came to the industry and filmmaking. You know, Tarantino as such, you know, his entire education was watching movies basically. But one real go-to I would probably say is Kevin Smith. You know, again, he did the similar thing. You know, he kind of dropped out of film school. He wanted to make this dumbass movie, Clerks, and, you know, funded it himself and shot it, and did what he wanted to do. And the first time I ever saw that was, I just went, oh my God, I cannot believe someone has made something that is exactly what I think as a film, because it was, you know, it's so off the wall. But yeah, I've got a lot of time for him, because again, his career path, he's had to adapt. You know, when he dropped out of filmmaking, you know, he was like, well, I'm going to start this strange new thing called podcasts. You know, little do you know that it's basically a huge career now. So big up to Kevin Smith. And also as well, I was actually on his show, Hollywood Babylon, that he does with Ralph Garman.
Oh, wow.
My friend Karen Borter knows Ralph Garman. I went when I was in LA to watch the show, and they said, oh, we have a celebrity guest, Jon Davey. And then they proceeded to come out with all the Doctor Who stuff, which I was totally embarrassed around. And then Ralph and Kevin were making fun of me and giving me shit. So that's on YouTube at the moment as well. So and also I put it on my Instagram. So that was an enormous thing. And I tell you what was brilliant. Kevin Smith said, he goes, you've got the best job on the show. You know, you're an Ood one day, you're a Dalek one day, you're a Cyberman another day. He said, life's always different for you. You're always changing. You know, he goes, fuck being the Doctor. He's doing the same thing every day. You've got the best job on the show. So, you know, having that bit of affirmation from someone that I really look up to was the best thing in the world. Sorry, that wasn't exactly quick fire, but...
John, do you read a newspaper?
No.
And if so, which one?
No. I haven't actually watched the news for 2 years, so...
you lucky devil.
Well, it's my choice.
What would you say is your favourite food?
Oh, favorite food. Well, my favorite food's probably food that I don't eat anymore, because having to squeeze into a costume means that I've had to sort my diet out, which is great. But cheesecake is my favorite food. However, my general diet now is chicken and rice and salad and omelets.
Who would you say next is your favorite cultural icon?
Oh, I think I blew it by saying Kevin Smith earlier.
You could choose Kevin Smith again.
Yeah,
We'll go with that one.
I'll double down on Kevin Smith. There you go.
What would you say is your favorite curse word and why?
Fuck. I say it quite a lot when I stub my toe or drop something down the back of the sofa. I don't know. It's just a bark, isn't it? Just comes out straight away.
You're a very well-traveled man. You mentioned about spending a long time recently in the States, but what would you say is your favorite place or holiday destination?
Wow. Some of my most amazing memories was going to New Zealand. That was just after The Hobbit was shot. Literally going to New Zealand and just stepping into Middle Earth.
Who would you say next is your favorite music artist, and what would you cite as your all-time favorite album?
Whew, wow. That's very tricky. Possibly a toss-up between AC/DC or The Prodigy.
And a favorite album?
I would say a toss-up between Fat of the Land or Back in Black.
And we move on to the final two, John. Firstly, what would you say is your greatest achievement to date?
I would say it would be avoiding doing a real job.
And the last question, Jon Davey. How do you wish to be remembered?
As long as I'm not remembered as an asshole, I'll be happy.
Nice way of finishing up the interview. Thank you kindly for being a guest on Your Take today. Been interested to hear your journey, and you're always a man of many stories and observations in life about your experiences. And you're someone who's always a talker. You like to talk, and it's always very interesting. So thanks a lot for thank you kindly.
You're welcome. And shameless plug. My social media handle is Jon Davey 007 JONDEDAVEY 007. So you can look on Instagram or Facebook, or I'm on Twitter, but God no, I don't go on there. You can just catch up with all the wacky things that I love doing with my life.
Wish you all the very best long term with Doctor Who and all your future endeavors, whether they're creative or outside of the creative world. And thanks again, and all the very best for the future.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thanks a lot for that.